This is November 8th, 2021. Beautiful city of the villages in Florida. Finally, we have a sunshine after 2 days of rain. My name is Jong-Woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has about 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans from not only from the United States, but also other 21 countries that participate in the Korean War. We are doing this to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been a long time already, right? And to honor your service. But most importantly, Korean War has been known as a forgotten war, and there are not much materials to use to teach about the Korean War in world history class in the school. That's why we're going to make these interviews into teaching material so that teachers can use this one when they talk about the Korean War in the history of Cold War. Okay, it's my great pleasure and honor to meet you, sir. Thank you for coming for this interview. Please introduce yourself. What is your name and spell it for the audience, please?
My name is Joseph Gruber. Joseph is Joseph. Joseph. Last name Gruber. Gruber.
Very good.
Yeah.
What is your birthday?
My birthday, 2/11/30.
So you are 91?
Yes, sir.
You look great, sir.
Huh?
You look great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and you are very strong. Where were you born?
Where was I born?
Yeah.
Oh, Chicago, Illinois.
Very big city.
Yes.
And tell me about your family background when you were growing up, your parents and your siblings, when you were growing up.
Well, my parents were very good to me. They both had to work to support the family. And I had a sister who had a mild neurological problem, and she died when she was 15 years old.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, she was playing softball. We had her in a special home for girls, which she liked. And I used to go over there and wait for her and talk to the sisters, the nuns that ran the place.
I see.
And she was out in the yard, and she was playing softball and hit it and ran to first base and died right there.
Just suddenly?
Just suddenly, and nothing they could do about it. So they, gave her what they knew in those days was artificial respiration, and stuff like that, but nothing worked.
What was her name?
Gwendolyn, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn Marie, middle name Marie, Gruber, Gruber.
So you remember her?
Oh, yes.
I am so sorry to hear that. So what school did you graduate, high school, and when?
I graduated from St. George High School in 1948, I believe. It was a Catholic high school, and in Evanston, Illinois.
When you were in school, did they teach anything about Korea to you in the history class or geography class? Nothing?
Nothing. No, nothing.
And then, what did you do after the graduation, sir?
Well, I worked. My father was a dock foreman, and he got me a job helping load and unload these big tractor trailers when they would pull into the docks. So I did some of that. and got hurt doing that. And yeah. Then they sent me over to another place to work where they needed some help, and I was working over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a fellow over there, I don't know where he was from, but he asked me what I was doing over there working. I was taking up somebody else's job, you know. And so I said, I'm sorry, but this is where they told me to come to work. And so he pulls out a knife.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was able to get his arm like so. He had his knife there. I'd get his arm like this, and I twisted it and turned him over, and he fell on the knife and died. And then they wanted to put me in the jail, and because other people I was working with saw everything happen, and they told the police when they came it wasn't his fault. You know, he was defending himself. So that happened, and then then I still kept working for my father on the docks, and so when I graduated from high school, a friend of mine decided to drive down to West Lafayette, Indiana, Purdue University. And I went down there, and I played some football there, and that's about what happened there. And then tore up my knee, and I had to have my knee wrapped and taped. And we had a big post office, and I had a big, heavy cart, and I could put my dirty clothes in. And I paid, and I had that shipped to my Aunt Marie in Chicago, and she did the laundry, sent it back to me. And
That was nice.
Yes, and of course I paid for it all. You know.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had a job and I paid for it. But then we had a...
But when did you join the military?
What?
When did you join the military?
Well, I was drafted.
Drafted when?
Oh, 1953 or 54. And I remember vividly that my mother and I were riding in a streetcar, and all of a sudden they stopped the streetcar, and a fella came in and he had newspapers, and he was selling them for a nickel or a dime, whatever he could get for them.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother got a copy of the paper, and she started to cry a little bit.
Why?
And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "It's too bad. So many boys are going to die now because of this war."
Yeah, but when was it? That was 1950.
That was 1952. It was, yeah, right about that time.
But you joined the military, you were drafted
I was drafted.
1953 or 54?
Oh, somewhere in there, 52 probably.
52?
And I had to go to basic training at Fort Lewis, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in there, and they couldn't find shoes big enough for me. So I had to stay there, and then I worked in the kitchen just doing, you know, things like until they found some shoes that would fit. And then I was able to ship out.
To Korea.
Yeah.
So you were in the army, right?
Yes.
Yes. And do you remember when you arrived in Korea?
Yes, I do. We went over there on an old ship. They called it the Marine Phoenix. And it would just, top speed was not very fast. And I had, my bunk where I slept was right next to the drive shaft for the propellers.
Huh.
And every so often, they would come down and they would shut the doors and lock us all in, and that was it. And they, what's this for? Well, there are some submarines in the area, and we don't want them, you know. So I said, well, okay. I said, when I go home, I'm going to sleep up topside.
Right.
So anyhow, I got to Korea.
When was it?
And
When?
on the wharf, right next to where the ship pulled in and docked, there was a big sign that said, "Welcome to the gates of hell."
Mm.
And everybody thought, "Oh my God!" And it was not pleasant. The food wasn't good, and you know.
Joe, but do you remember when you arrived in Korea? When?
Well, it was probably February or March in '53, or I got there basically, and then I had to go through another reclassification and reassignment, they called it. And so they sent me there.
But do you remember where you arrived? Incheon?
Oh, there was an old schoolhouse close to playfields, you know, so I had to go in there. I got sick, and I was in there then for a couple of months, and finally I got better and got well and went back to my unit.
What was your unit?
958 Ordnance Company.
Of?
958 Ordnance Company.
Yeah, but does that have a higher unit, like a battalion, regiment?
This is what this was. It was a 958 Ordnance Company.
Right.
And the purpose of it was to provide ammunition and stuff like that to the troops. And they also sent me to auto mechanic school. So I got a certificate as a wheel vehicle repairman. Mm-hmm. And this went on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an old, big locomotive on tracks outside of our compound. And we had guards on it. And one day we got up in the morning and someone had stolen the train. You figure that one out. They just took the train and away it went.
Was it in Incheon or Busan?
Oh, this was in Busan, right outside of Busan.
So you arrived in Busan.
Right, yeah. But
So from there, where did you go? Did you stay in Busan or did you go up to the north?
No, I went up north.
Where?
Close to the 38th parallel. Enchang, I guess it was called, because we used to have the camp shows would come through, and there was a big machine gun nest right outside of our tent, and I had to man that machine gun if things got really tough. And but it was bitter cold, and I can just remember, you know, they have these round cans, and they had water in them, and they called them butt cans, and you put your cigarette butts in there, and it just, everything froze solid. So.
It was very difficult, right?
Yeah. And, but clothing was a problem, getting warm clothing. I sent a letter to my mother and said, I want you to go and buy me a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirts, wrap them up and send them to me. I said, it's bitter cold over here. I'm going to freeze to death in these army jackets. And these army jackets were, you know, weren't very good. So
did your mom send the clothes?
yeah, she sent stuff over to me.
And how was it? Was it better?
Huh?
Was it better than?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so, were you in Incheon area or up further north in 38 parallel?
No, I was never in Frozen Chosen. I was never in Frozen Chosen.
Yeah, no.
No. But a lot of those fellows had to retreat out of there and come south.
I know, but you were there in 53, so already it's all done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were you doing when the armistice was signed in July 27 of 1953?
Oh,
What were you doing? Where were you? Do you remember?
I don't remember where I was. I'm trying to think of. Oh, I know what. I was in an airplane, and we had what we called R&R, Rest and Rehabilitation.
Yeah. You went to Japan.
And we went to Japan. And we're flying along, and you can look out our window, and you can see Mount Fuji. And Mount Fuji was not moving, but we were.
Right. So, what were you doing in July 27 in 1953 when the armistice was signed? Do you remember?
I really don't know. I really don't know.
It's been a long time, so it's hard to remember,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And when did you leave Korea?
Well, they, again, we had to go to a field unit where they gave you clean clothes, and you had to strip down naked and go in there and be examined. And then if you passed muster, then you came out the other end and you got clean clothes to put on. And those are the clothes that you wore when you went to the separation center. And I remember vividly that I had also some civilian clothes, like pants like this and a shirt. And we went to, they said, now what you want to do is you want to go to this real nice hotel. It's right at the base of Mount Fuji. And so I said, okay. So a friend of mine went there, and big black limousine pulls up, and out comes a papasan, and he's got a briefcase, and he starts walking along and somehow stumbled on something, and the briefcase fell to the ground. I grabbed him by the arm and held him up. Then I got his briefcase and gave it back to him. And he bowed his head and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Then they left. Well, my friend and I that was there with me, we had a very tiny room at the side, up in there. And so we just decided that we would bunk up there because they had the mattresses for the floors and everything. So we were in there, and lo and behold, somebody knocks on the door. And we opened it, and it was this man's servant came up and said, you come down now. Boss man want to see both of you. So we went down there and sat down at a big long table, and we had dinner with him. Excellent dinner. And girls would come around and light your cigarettes and so on.
And that was in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you are Korean War veteran, so I want to talk more about your war experience in Korea. So when did you leave Korea?
Well, we left Korea again, we had to take the materials that we had, the uniforms and everything, and get on the new boat that was going to take us back to the United States.
So when was that?
Oh, that was probably 1954 or 55, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And again, we were on that boat, and it was an old boat, and it was, it was susceptible to waves and rocking. And I said, I'm not staying down in this place anymore. So I went up topside, and I climbed in a life raft, and I went to sleep. And I stayed there until we hit shore. So that's my experience on getting back to the States. But getting back there, again, we had to go through...
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing.
But when you were in Korea, was there any dangerous moment that you might have been killed?
Well, I had a responsibility from delivering mail from Busan up the road to, the other places where there was, and I had another Korean driver who carried a rifle, and he sat alongside of me in the front seat of this truck, supposedly. And we were going up a sharp bank, and all of a sudden we heard gunfire, boom, 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 and coming out of the hillside above us. And they shot holes in two of our tires. And I said, and all I had was a pistol that I carried. Mm-hmm. So I got that out, and I was going to lay down behind one of the tires and shoot whoever had shot at me. My driver, the Korean guy with a rifle, he disappeared. I don't know where he went to. And but right after that, behind me, in the truck behind me, there was a detachment of our GIs, and they were armed, and they shot up into the woods up in there where those people were. I don't know if they got anybody or not, but so they were able to fix our tires, and we got the mail through, got the mail through. And
so
but that's the closest I came to being under fire.
So you were staying in Busan. You didn't go up to north, right? Did you go up to
I
north?
wound up way up at the 38th parallel.
Oh, and then you came back to Busan?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Now I got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got up there, and
because the war ended, right, while you were there?
Pretty much so.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had some nice warm clothes now for a change, and the camp shows came through. And you probably remember the name of Bob Hope. Bob Hope came through, and he had Marilyn Monroe with him. And everybody was clapping for Marilyn Monroe and Bob Hope.
How was it?
Well, I had to stay in the machine gun nest, so I didn't get to see very much.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. But it was entertaining, that's for sure.
So after you left Korea, have you been back to Korea?
No, I have been invited to go back. They have these tours and everything that they talk about, and you can sign up and get to go back, and there's some expense you have to pay, but most of the time everything is paid for by the Korean government. So
that's a great deal, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I never went though.
So how was life there when you were in Korea? Where did you sleep? What did you eat? Things like that.
Was life like?
No, when you were in Korea, how did you sleep? Where did you sleep? What did you eat? And so on.
Well, there was, like I say, for some reason or other, I got infectious hepatitis. The water was bad.
Yeah.
And so they put me in this hospital. It was an old, I believe they said it was an old Japanese schoolhouse. And so I was in there for a while. And I had to eat the food that they brought into me, which some of it was good and some of it was poor. The nurses were very, very good to us. We had American nurses.
I see.
Yeah, and they were very good to us. Sometimes they would bring some food into us, And finally, I was in there, and
what was your rank at the time? What was your rank?
My rank at that time was E3 or E4. Corporal.
Corporal.
Corporal of the Guard. Yeah. And but one time they had a new floor officer that came in, and he looked at me and he said, "You, get out of bed and get up and get a broom and start cleaning this floor up." I said, "You're nuts." I said, "I've been sick, I've been vomiting. You want me to get out of bed and sweep it up?" He said, "Yes, that's a direct order." I said, "Okay." Now I had this tin pan, so I just took it and I threw it at him. I said, "Here, catch." Oh, he was going to have me court-martialed. And So finally, later on, another guy came in, and he was pretty high up. And he said, you shouldn't have done that, because that fellow is, an inspector general or whatever you want to call him, an IG. I said, I don't care what he was. And so I said, what I would like to do, if I could, I'd like to get out of this bed, and I know that right down the hall there's a shower room, and you've got some showers. I'd like to take a shower. So I got up and I walked down there, and I had a robe, and I put it on, and I went down in there. And I took the robe off, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, my God, you're skin and bones. I had just lost so much weight.
Because of the sickness.
Yeah, and everything. So I took a shower, washed up, put my stuff back on that I had, and I went back to my room. And one of the nurses came in, and she said, would you like some ice cream? I said, do you have some? She says, yes, we have a lot of ice cream. Oh, I said, would I ever? She said, what kind would you like? I said, what kind have you got? She said, well, we got vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. I said, mix it all up and bring it up. And they did. They brought me ice cream. So I sat there and I ate my ice cream. And then we had to do some other things, and I got to the point where I was able to go outside and sit in chairs, and relax and eat my ice cream and things like that. But other than that, life in that place was not pleasant.
So then, after you returned from Korea, what did you do?
After I returned home from Korea?
Yeah.
Well, I played ball, and, I went to work.
Got it.
Did some work.
Mm-hmm. So, you've never been back to Korea, right?
No.
And are you aware of how Korean economy is doing well?
I'm aware of the fact that I just looked in the Korean magazine that we get, the Graybeards, and there was applications in there. If you were interested in going back to Korea, you could go. So, and I asked my wife if she would like to go, and she's not well. So she said, well, if you have to go, you'll be going by yourself, because I won't go with you.
I see.
I said, well, I wouldn't go over there without you.
So, what do you know about the Korean economy right now? How well they are doing? Do you know any company, any product that you know?
Well, I've been reading that there are some things that they're doing that are economy-wise, that are helping the country economically. Other than that, other than what I see on television when they show us that they're, the Peace House, and they have people trying to cross the line, and then they're shooting at them, and they don't get them, and I said, that's crazy. If the guys are running like that, they ought to dive in the lake. But No, other than that, why, I probably could have gone back, on one of those missions, but they have a number of Korean officers and so on that come to the United States and put on an exhibition of some kind, And I know I've got a couple of medals that big around from Korea. Ouch. So that's about it.
All righty. Any other story you want to tell me? Any other story about your service in Korea?
No.
That's about it, right?
That's about it.
All right.
I went to the Tokyo Onsen, which was a bathhouse. And that was interesting, quite interesting. And so you could get in this hot water and they'd come around and they'd dish it out, with pans.
It's a public bathhouse.
Public bathhouse.
Which is not common in the United States.
No.
All right, so Joe, I want to thank you for your service as a Korean War veteran. And because you served there, so that Koreans were given opportunity to rebuild their nation. Economy is now 10th largest economy in the world. Very small country, half size of the Florida state. They don't have a drop of oil, but they are 10th largest economy in the world, and that is your legacy, okay? I want you to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
The thing that I don't understand is when they divided that country up and they put the 38th parallel across there, who made the decision where that line was supposed to go?
U.S. soldier, U.S. 2 Army officer made that decision in 30 minutes in 1945.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because you go back and if you look further up, why, the half of Korea is in Manchuria.
That could have been happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Any other question you have?
No.
No? Okay. Joe, it's been a pleasure to meet you and nice to hear your stories. And thank you for that.
Okay.
All righty.